The stars had always looked peaceful to him. Cold. Silent. Untouchable. Captain Rylan Cade stood at the edge of the observation deck, staring into the void beyond Earth's orbit. The stars blinked back like distant witnesses to history, unmoved, uncaring. But they were about to watch something new, something loud, something human. The ship beneath his boots, the Revenant, was Earth's first real answer to a growing cosmic threat. Not a probe, not a defense satellite, not even a cruiser, a star destroyer. Fully armed. Ugly in the best way. Rylan knew because he helped design the damn thing. He clenched his jaw as the auto checklists scrolled across the holo display. 1 more hour until launch. 1 more hour until they left Earth behind. Forever, if things went sideways. Commander Vale wants final clearance on Deck 6 plasma coils, said a voice behind him. It was Lieutenant Parsa, one of the new kids. Too clean, too polite. His eyes sparkled like he still thought space was an adventure. Rylan didn't answer right away. He kept staring, hand tight around the railing. His mind drifted. Not to the mission, but to them. The Zerathi, 8-limbed bastards with tech 1,000 years ahead who spoke only through conquest. They'd razed the Martian outpost like it was cardboard, vaped Europa's settlements in under 5 minutes. Humanity's pleas were answered with silence. Until now. Tell Vale to fire them up. If they blow, better now than when we're out in the black, Rylan finally said. Parsa nodded, hesitated, then asked, Sir, do you really think we stand a chance against the Zerathi? Rylan turned. His eyes weren't kind. They weren't angry either, just used. Not if we keep thinking like they're gods. That shut the kid up. He walked off, boots echoing. Rylan turned back to the void. He remembered the screams from the last attack, the grainy audio feed from Europa Station as it was torn apart, the captain begging, crying. Silence followed, then static. Rylan played it over 1,000 times. He had to. He needed the rage. The Revenant wasn't a diplomatic ship. It wasn't a last hope. It was vengeance wrapped in steel, fueled by the deaths of 72,000 colonists and built from tech Earth wasn't even supposed to have. Reverse-engineered scraps from a wrecked Zerathi scout ship, mixed with Earth's brutal ingenuity. No sleek designs, no philosophical debates, just a goddamn warship. He walked the deck slowly, eyeing the crew as he passed. Each of them chosen for what they could do, not how well they played politics. The old world had been ruled by countries, corporations, and committees. But out here, in the deep, the only thing that mattered was survival and revenge. He stepped into the command bridge. Lights dimmed automatically. The room hummed with restrained power, like a predator ready to pounce. Holomaps glowed over a black console, showing their trajectory to the Proxima Belt, where the last Zerathi movement was spotted. Rylan stood before it, silent, letting the pressure build. Time until jump? He asked. 42 minutes, replied Commander Vale, a woman with half a face made of alloy and eyes that hadn't blinked in 3 years. Prep the main cannon. We go loud if we see anything bigger than a probe. You want them to know we're coming? Rylan looked at her, voice hard. I want them to remember us. Behind him, the ship's main railgun started its startup sequence. A low rumble vibrated through the walls. It was Earth's heartbeat now, angry, relentless, unforgiving. They called the Revenant the first Star Destroyer. But Rylan knew it was more than that. It was the end of silence, and he was going to make sure space never forgot Earth again. The hum of the reactor was like a growl under their feet now. Low, menacing. It gave the whole ship a pulse, like a living thing. Rylan Cade stood at the command console, staring at the expanding holomap. The stars were no longer quiet dots in the distance. They were potential kill zones, ambushes waiting to happen. And out there, somewhere, were the Zirathi. He didn't blink as the countdown hit 10 seconds. "Jump sequence engaged," Vale announced. "All decks report green." Rylan gripped the side of the console. The ship shuddered like it was trying to escape gravity's last whisper. And then, it hit. The starstream folded space around them in an instant, and everything went dark, save for the flickering lights of the bridge. Then the Revenant was gone from Earth's skies. In its place, silence again, for a few seconds. Then the ship burst into a new system, a red-lit star casting long shadows across asteroid fields and fractured moons. This was Zirathi hunting territory. No patrols, no colonies, just wreckage, old war-torn metal husks from species humanity had never even heard of. It was a star graveyard. Ryland's fists clenched. "Scan the debris field. Look for anything giving off a heat signature." "Picking up faint ionic traces," Vale muttered, hands dancing across her console. "Could be from a cloaked vessel." "Or bait," Rylan added. A silence passed. Not fear, just tension, the kind soldiers learn to live with. Then Parsa's voice cracked through the comms. "Sir, you need to see this." Rylan turned to the viewport. One of the shattered moons had something hovering just behind it. It shimmered, barely visible against the darkness. The ship's sensors struggled to pin it down, but they all saw the silhouette. It wasn't human. Vale zoomed in. The Zirathi ship was massive, not elegant, not sharp. It looked like a nightmare made of metal and bones, as if it had been built from the wrecks of its past victims. Tentacle-like structures wrapped around its hull. No markings, no windows, just a pulsating core buried deep within. "Jesus," someone whispered. "It's a Reaver class. That thing could take out a whole planet." Ryland stared at it like he was staring down a monster from his childhood nightmares. "We're not backing off," he said flatly. "Target the core." "But Captain—" "Do it," he snapped. This was what the Revenant was made for. The gun decks roared to life. Internal systems began redirecting power. The railgun, Earth's first real spaceborne superweapon, aimed directly at the alien ship. Every crew member held their breath. The Zirathi moved first. It didn't charge. It didn't fire. It spoke. The audio system screamed. A raw, garbled voice tore through the ship's speakers like 1,000 insects hissing in unison. "You will break. You are not worthy of flame." Then it fired. A beam of blue plasma sliced through the darkness. It missed, barely. The blast ripped through a small moon fragment, turning it into dust and flame. "Fire now!" Rylan barked. The Revenant's main gun released a pulse that vibrated down to Rylan's bones. The rail slug, magnetically accelerated, hit the alien ship dead on. The shockwave bent space. The Zirathi vessel buckled, and for a moment it looked like they'd crippled it. Flames burst from its side. Chunks of alien metal spun off into the void. Then it screamed again. Not through sound, through every system on the Revenant. Lights blinked out. Consoles sparked. A low-frequency wave knocked several crew off their feet. Ryland stood still. "Commander Vale, secondary weapons. Fire everything." The ship obeyed. Dozens of missiles launched from all angles, spiraling through space like guided rage. Some were intercepted by alien defense drones, but others landed, one by one, tearing deeper into the Reaver's belly. And then the alien ship retreated. It didn't explode. It didn't fight to the last. It ran. Rylan watched as it folded space and disappeared, just as fast as it had come. "Damage report," he said calmly. "Minor. Hull integrity at 92%. But Captain, it left behind something." He turned. Show me. A transmission flickered into life on the screen. Not sound, not even images, just symbols, dozens of them. Alien glyphs, bleeding into each other like they were written with pain. And one, at the center, looked eerily similar to the Earth insignia. A threat? A challenge? Or a warning? Ryland stared at it for a long time. "Well," he said coldly. "Looks like we're in the war now." The crew didn't celebrate. The silence on the bridge after the Zirathi retreated was thick, like everyone was waiting for something else to go wrong. In truth, no one expected the enemy to run, especially not Rylan. He'd studied the Zirathi for years. They didn't surrender. They didn't retreat. They exterminated. And yet, here they were, still alive, with a Star Destroyer still intact. Ryland stared at the glyphs pulsing on the holoscreen. The alien symbols flickered like they were alive, each line bending and distorting like smoke in zero gravity. The central glyph, the one resembling Earth's insignia, kept expanding, pulsing with a blood-red glow. "They sent us a message," Vale said quietly. "But it's not language. It's more like emotional coding." Ryland turned toward her. "Explain." "They're not just sending threats in text or speech. They're transmitting raw emotion, rage, contempt, curiosity. It's like they're trying to speak directly to the survival part of the brain." "Psychological warfare," Ryland muttered. "More like psychic," Vale said. "Our systems are registering neural disturbances across the crew." He didn't like the sound of that. "Anyone affected?" Vale hesitated. "Parsa's down in medbay. He passed out after staring too long at the glyphs. Said something about voices, screaming ones." "Tell the med team to restrict visual exposure to the signal. No one looks at it again unless I say so." "Aye, Captain." He turned to the main viewport. The wreckage of their first battle hung in space like broken teeth, drifting in slow motion. This was supposed to be a scouting mission. Test the ship, gather intelligence, engage only if absolutely necessary. But Earth's first Star Destroyer had already fired its first shot, and the universe had answered. "Prep the drones," Rylan ordered. "I want a full scan of the battlefield. Debris, escape vectors, and—" An alert blared, cutting him off. Red glyphs flashed across the tactical display, spinning rapidly. "Another transmission?" Vale asked. "No," Ryland said. "That's not a message." He tapped into the external cameras. The view zoomed in on the largest chunk of alien debris, the same piece they'd knocked loose during the assault. At first it looked lifeless, just twisted metal and bone-like plating. But then it twitched. The crew gasped. The wreckage unfolded like a dying insect. Small, spider-like limbs emerged, twitching. It wasn't a ship fragment. It was alive, or something close to it. "Target it," Ryland snapped. Before the gunners could react, the thing launched from the wreck and latched onto the Revenant's hull. Alarms screamed as hull integrity dropped from 92% to 68% in a heartbeat. Something was drilling through. "We've got a breach," Vale shouted. "Mid-deck. Whatever that thing is, it's trying to get inside. Seal off Deck C. Evacuate personnel." Ryland stormed out of the bridge without another word. The elevator ride was too slow. His fists clenched the whole time. As the doors opened, he could already hear the metallic screeching echoing through the hall. Sparks flew, lights flickered. And then he saw it, about 20 meters away, a spidery, biomechanical creature, fused from Zirathi metal and something that looked half-organic, was ripping through the bulkhead. Long, blade-like legs stabbed the walls as it crawled forward. One of the security officers tried to shoot. It moved faster than any eye could follow. The man's body hit the far wall with a sickening crunch. Ryland didn't hesitate. He grabbed the emergency railgun from the wall mount and fired. The recoil nearly tore his shoulder out, but the slug hit the thing dead center. It shrieked, not from its mouth, but from every surface of its body. The sound vibrated through the ship like a tremor. For a split second, it glitched, phased out of sight, and then back in again. It wasn't just fast, it was phasing. "Command, I need containment bots and electromagnetic dampeners down here now," Ryland shouted into his comm. The spider creature lunged. He dove, barely avoiding the blades, and rolled behind an emergency console. The thing tore through metal like paper, trying to reach him. Suddenly, from the other corridor, a blast of cryofoam erupted. The containment bots arrived just in time. They doused the creature in freezing mist and static charges. Its body twitched violently, convulsing under the dampeners. Then it fell hard and stopped moving. Ryland stood slowly, breathing hard. "Get that thing into isolation, and triple seal the lab," he ordered. "Sir," Vale's voice came through. "That was a Zerathi boarding unit. They left it behind. On purpose." Ryland's eyes narrowed. They wanted it to get inside. And then, in the back of his mind, a terrible thought surfaced, clearer than the void outside. What if this was never a battle? What if this was just the first test? They locked the creature in Isolation Chamber 7, behind 5 layers of reinforced titanium and 2 containment fields powered by separate cores. Still, no one trusted the thing was truly contained. It just lay there, motionless, silent. But not dead. Ryland watched it through the observation window, his jaw locked. It didn't breathe. It didn't blink. But it was thinking. He could feel it in his bones, like a cold pressure building in the air around him. The kind of quiet that comes just before lightning hits. Dr. Halverson, the ship's xenobiologist, stood beside him. Pale, shaking, a man who'd dissected alien organisms with a scalpel in one hand and a whiskey glass in the other. But now, his hand was trembling. I've never seen anything like it," Halverson whispered. "It's not just machine or flesh. It's both. It's learning." Ryland didn't flinch. "What did it do to Parsa?" The doctor hesitated. "His brainwaves spiked the moment the creature came on board, then flatlined. He's breathing, but he's not waking up, like he's trapped in a feedback loop." Ryland stared harder at the creature. "So it didn't need to kill him, just touch his mind." "That thing is broadcasting something," Halverson said. "Even sealed in there, it's reaching out. It's like it's knocking." "Knocking on what?" "On us." Ryland stepped away. He didn't need to hear any more. By the time he reached the bridge, the ship was already under a new kind of tension. Not physical, but something heavier. Psychological. Crew members were whispering, eyes darted. People were sleeping less, eating less. Someone had scratched symbols into their bunk wall, symbols that looked suspiciously like the ones from the Zerathi glyphs. He was losing control. Vale walked beside him, quiet, steady as always. "You should address the crew," she said. "I know. They're not trained for this kind of enemy. No one is. That's why we're out here first." They reached the command deck. Ryland stood in front of the wide view screen, where the stars drifted silently beyond. For a moment, he just looked out. Then he turned on the comms. "All hands, this is Captain Cade." The hum of machinery dimmed across the ship. Conversation stopped. Everyone listened. "We didn't come out here expecting peace. We knew we were walking into enemy territory. The Zerathi don't negotiate, they don't communicate, and now we know why." He paused. Let it sink in. "They see us the way we once saw fire, dangerous but primitive. But that changes today. We hit them once. We made them bleed. That thing they left on board? It was a message. They're testing us, probing us, trying to see what we'll do next." Another pause. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We fight back. Harder, smarter, louder. He stepped closer to the mic, his voice tightening. We didn't build the Revenant to run. We built it to show the galaxy that Earth isn't prey, that silence is over. And if the Zirathi want to know what humanity's made of, he looked at the stars again. Then let's give them a demonstration. The ship roared to life. Crew members returned to their posts with new purpose. The fear was still there, but it had been forged into something useful now. Rage. Resolve. Set course for the nearest Zirathi relay point, Rylan ordered. I want to take out their listening post. If they want to learn about humans, they'll hear us coming. Vale nodded. Plotting course. Jump drive spooling. As they moved through the system, the holomap updated with new intel. The Zirathi relay was hidden deep within a debris cloud, likely guarded, possibly booby-trapped. Rylan smiled. Good. They reached the edge of the cloud within an hour. The Revenant slowed, shields raised, weapons armed. Deploy combat drones. I want eyes on every angle. The drones launched, weaving into the field. What they found turned Rylan's blood to ice. The relay wasn't a satellite, it was a temple. Alien ships formed a ring around a central, pulsing structure. It looked grown, not built, like coral fused with tech. Dozens of smaller Zirathi crafts hovered like insects around it. And then, the signal came. Not words, not emotion. This time it was images. Flashes of Earth burning, the moon shattered, cities drowned in shadow. Not warnings, promises. Rylan clenched his fists. Commander Vale, he said calmly. Target the temple. Let's make the first move. Yes, Captain. The Revenant's railgun charged. Missiles primed. Energy crackled across the hull. And far off, beyond the temple, something stirred in the black. Something bigger, much, much bigger. The Revenant's hull vibrated with barely contained energy. Lights dimmed slightly as the railgun drew power from the core, humming like a storm building beneath steel. Rylan watched the Zirathi temple swell in the scope. Too alien to comprehend, too massive to ignore. Target locked, Vale said, voice level. Fire on your command. But Rylan's eyes weren't on the temple anymore. They were fixed on the shadow moving just beyond it. It emerged slowly from the black, first just a silhouette, then detail by horrifying detail. A ship. No, a Leviathan, thousands of meters long. Its hull wasn't smooth or armored like the Revenant's. It pulsed and shifted, alive with veins of green light. Spires rose from its surface like bone towers, and beneath them, the faint shimmer of energy signatures, weapons, and many of them. The crew gasped in unison. New contact, Vale said, her voice uncharacteristically tense. That's not a patrol craft. It's a flagship. Rylan's eyes narrowed. The Revenant was built to kill stars, he said coldly. Let's see if it can punch a god. Firing, Vale confirmed. The railgun released its charge in a single blinding pulse. The slug cut through space in under 3 seconds. It struck the temple dead center. The impact tore through the alien structure like thunder through glass. A cascade of green-blue fire erupted, splintering it from within. Zirathi ships scrambled, shrieking across every channel. Then the flagship reacted. It didn't fire, it spoke. A voice ripped into their systems. No language, just raw, violent thought. Everyone on the bridge staggered as the ship shuddered beneath them. Lights flickered. Consoles bled static. We watched your kind crawl from the dirt. You should have stayed there. Rylan gritted his teeth, grabbing the console for balance. Return fire, all batteries. Missiles launched, streaking toward the enemy ship like burning comets. The Revenant's secondary cannons opened up, peppering the swarm of Zirathi fighters as they darted to intercept. It wasn't enough. The flagship opened its maw. A massive port on its front split wide, revealing a sphere of churning, dark energy. It didn't glow. It absorbed light. Space bent around it. "Oh my God," Vale whispered. "It's charging a gravitic cannon." Ryland slammed a fist down. "Evasive! Get us out of the kill zone, now!" The Revenant banked hard, straining against inertia as its engines screamed. But the Zerathi were ready. Fighters swarmed like hornets, locking on, peppering the hull. Shields flickered red. Hull integrity dropped. 84%, then 79%. "Grav cannon charging complete," Vale said through gritted teeth. "Impact in 15 seconds. Ryland made a choice. Divert all non-essential systems to shield buffers, and release the reactor baffles. Vale turned to him. "You want to vent plasma into the cannon's path? If it's heat-based, we'll overload the charge. If it's gravity-based, it might destabilize," she finished. "Exactly. Do it." 10 seconds. The Revenant slowed as plasma lines opened, venting glowing streams of raw energy into space like a bleeding animal. The flagship adjusted its aim. 7 seconds. "Shields at 42%. 5. Then the Zerathi fired. The beam erupted, a column of condensed nothingness, erasing stars in its path. It slammed into the cloud of plasma and detonated. Space itself seemed to crack. The shockwave struck the Revenant broadside. The ship rolled. Everything went white. Then, silence. A long, heavy silence. Emergency lights flickered on. Consoles rebooted. Smoke hissed from broken vents. Rylan opened his eyes, a gash above his brow bleeding into one eye. "We're still here?" Vale whispered. "Status," Rylan growled. "Shields collapsed. Hull at 52%. Railgun offline, but we're alive." "Did it work?" She turned to the screen. The Zerathi flagship had recoiled, its front scorched, energy bleeding from ruptured conduits. The grav cannon was gone, torn clean from its core, and best of all, the rest of the Zerathi ships were scattering. They'd wounded the god. "They're retreating," Vale said, half in disbelief. "All of them." Rylan exhaled. "Plot a course out of the system," he said. "We'll come back when the railgun's hot again." But deep inside, he knew this wasn't a victory. It was a provocation. They hadn't scared the Zerathi. They'd earned their attention. And in the black silence beyond the stars, 1,000 more Leviathans might be watching. Waiting. The silence after the battle felt heavier than the fight itself. Not the kind that brought peace, but the kind that felt like holding your breath underwater, waiting to see if something would grab your ankle and drag you down. The Revenant limped away from the wrecked system, engines sputtering and hull groaning with every burn. Sparks still rained from half the ceiling lights. Crew moved with grim determination, patching leaks, rerouting power, and stabilizing what systems they could. They'd survived the impossible, but survival didn't feel like victory. In the medbay, Ryland stood beside Parsa's cot. The young lieutenant hadn't moved in over a day. His body was fine, brain activity normal. But he wasn't there. His eyes were open now, blank and glassy, staring past the ceiling like he was looking through dimensions. "He's in some kind of locked loop," Dr. Halverson explained. "His neural patterns match the waveform of the alien transmission. It's like the creature synced with his brain." "Can you break it?" "I'm trying, but if we force a reset, we could fry his mind completely." Ryland stared at the kid, jaw tight. "Then don't screw it up." He walked out before Halverson could reply. On the way back to the bridge, he passed the containment chamber. The alien drone, the one the Zerathi left on board, still hadn't moved. But something was different. The walls around it were cracked, microscopic fractures in the titanium spreading like veins. The electromagnetic field fluctuated every few seconds, like the thing was draining power even while dormant. He paused. "Seal the chamber," he told the security officer nearby, "permanently, and reroute emergency power to keep that thing buried in force fields, even if this ship dies." "Aye, sir." Back on the bridge, Vale met him with a look that said it all. Trouble. "We intercepted a ping," she said. "Not from the Zerathi, from Earth." Ryland's brows knit. "They're hailing us?" "Number they're broadcasting about us, to the colonies, to the outer stations." She pulled up the footage. Ryland watched as an EarthGov official in a sleek, sterile suit stood at a podium. "Successful test of the Revenant-class destroyer confirms Earth's technological superiority in outer space defense. Hostile contact with non-human entities was engaged and repelled. Casualties minimal. Victory decisive." Ryland's fists clenched. "They're turning this into a propaganda campaign," he growled. "They think we won." "They're already planning a second ship. 2 more, according to the feed." Ryland turned from the screen. "They didn't see what I saw. That wasn't a battle. That was bait." Vale didn't disagree. "There's more." She pulled up the ship's encrypted logs. A signal, buried in background radiation during the grav cannon blast, was still playing. It looped every 11 minutes. Ryland leaned closer. It wasn't a voice or a scream. It was a countdown. "Time to impact?" he asked. "Not impact," she said. "Arrival." The realization hit them both. The flagship wasn't alone. That was never the plan. It was a scout, a herald, and now the rest were coming. "How long do we have?" 17 hours. Ryland stepped away, rubbing a hand over his face. No backup. No reinforcements. Earth was weeks away. The second ship wasn't even built. The Revenant, bruised, limping, half-blind, was the last line between humanity and whatever came next. He looked out at the stars. "Bring me every engineer, every tactician, every scrap of metal we can weld into something lethal," he said. "If we're going down, we're taking as many of them with us as we can." Vale gave him a long look. "You planning on dying out here?" "No," Ryland said. "I'm planning on becoming the reason they fear Earth." She gave a tight nod. "Then let's make some noise." The Revenant turned, slow and wounded but defiant. Behind it, the stars began to warp, shift, and darken. The invasion had begun. And Earth's first star destroyer wasn't finished yet. The ship was alive with motion, chaos wrapped in urgency. Welders sparked across corridors. Power lines hummed as systems were rerouted from comfort to combat. The mess hall was silent. No one eating, just watching the countdown flicker on shared screens. 16 hours? Then 15. Then 14. Captain Ryland Cade stood at the center of it all, unmoved. Focused. He hadn't slept in nearly 30 hours, but there was no time. Sleep was for peacetime. And this? This was the moment between the inhale and the scream. In the armory, engineers stripped the remaining torpedoes to retrofit warheads with nuclear payloads. There were only 5 left. Each one packed enough punch to turn a moon inside out, if they could survive long enough to deliver them. Reactor output running at 129%, Vale reported, wiping sweat from her brow as she stepped beside Ryland. "We're running hot. We can burn like a star, but only for a few minutes." "That's all we'll need." She looked at him, quietly. "You know we're not coming back from this." He didn't answer right away, just stared at the holomap, now tracking 3 incoming objects, massive, accelerating, no known propulsion systems, the real Zerathi fleet. "If they get past us," he finally said, "they'll hit Mars in 3 days, Earth in 6. We can't let that happen." Vale nodded slowly. "So we go out like gods, then?" "No," Ryland said. "We go out like humans, loud, angry, and impossible to ignore." In the medbay, Parsa stirred. Just once. His lips moved, barely. Vale caught it on the monitor. He's whispering something. They leaned closer. The words were faint, almost incomprehensible. They are already inside. Ryland's stomach sank. Get Halverson. Now. Within minutes, the doctor confirmed what he feared. Neural scans showed fluctuating spikes, Zerathi frequency patterns, moving like worms inside the data. Not just in Parsa, in the ship's systems. They've infected the Revenant, Halverson said. Not physically, not with code, with thought, with concepts. What the hell does that mean? Vale asked. It means our ship might be thinking about betraying us. A siren blared. Main reactor fluctuation. Deck 4, power surge. Then, weapons offline. Comms scrambled, navigation spinning. They're hijacking us, Ryland said, fury rising. They're turning our own mind against us. Then the lights flickered and spoke. Not with words, but images. Glimpses of Earth, cities consumed in flame, oceans boiling away, humanity enslaved, bound in black wires. The crew froze as the ship's PA activated, broadcasting the same garbled Zerathi symbols that had put Parsa into a coma. Shut it down, Ryland barked. Manual override. Kill all automated systems. Go full analog. The crew jumped into action, yanking out cables, flipping breakers, rerouting power through decades-old backups. Sparks flew, screens shattered, but slowly, the ship quieted. The AI core went dark. And for the first time since the mission began, the Revenant felt truly human again. Imperfect, clunky, free. Ryland wiped a streak of sweat from his forehead, his voice rough. No more borrowed tech, no more alien tricks. We do this with what we've got and nothing more. Vale, breathing hard, grinned. Good, because I just pulled up something old school. She tapped the screen. It showed a single pod attached to the railgun's internal housing, one that had been dismissed during initial weapon tests. The Thresher warhead. Wasn't cleared for use. Too unstable. Could punch through a battleship and keep going. The engineers called it overkill. Ryland's eyes lit with something cold and fierce. Perfect. They began reconfiguring the main railgun, stripping every last bit of power into one final shot. There would be no second chance. When the fleet arrived, they'd fire once, and either rewrite history or be wiped from it. The final hours ticked down. Crew members wrote letters they'd never send. Some prayed. Some loaded their sidearms with trembling hands. And in the heart of the ship, Ryland stood before the viewport, watching as the first shadows emerged. 3 Zerathi capital ships, crawling across the stars like living nightmares. They moved like they already owned this part of space. Ryland didn't move. On my mark, he said. Charge the Thresher. Target the largest ship. We hit first, we hit hardest, and we don't wait to see if it flinches. Vale nodded. They'll see Earth's spirit in that shot. No, Ryland said. They'll see Earth's rage. The gun charged. The enemy approached, and humanity's last defiant breath began. They came like a storm. 3 Zerathi capital ships emerged from the void, monstrous and silent. They didn't form ranks. They didn't signal demands. They simply drifted forward, as if gravity itself bent in submission around them. Each ship dwarfed the Revenant, living fortresses of bone and metal, wrapped in dark energy and history soaked in extinction. On the bridge, the lights were red. Not emergency lights, war lights. Ryland stood dead center, eyes locked on the center monitor where the largest ship loomed. His jaw was steel. No more hesitation. No more posturing. This was it. Status on the Thresher? He asked. Fully charged, Vale replied, her voice tight, resolute. Weapon coils overheating, After this shot, the railgun will melt. Good, Ryland said. It'll be the last thing we ever need it for. Across the ship, the crew fell silent. No one begged. No one cried. They'd made peace already. Some clutched keepsakes. Others closed their eyes and breathed deep, committing this final moment to memory. Because whether they lived or died, this was the moment humanity roared. Fire, the Revenant screamed. The Thresher warhead launched in a burst of raw energy, breaking every rule of space combat. The recoil alone tore 3 decks' flooring loose. Heat alarms wailed, but no one looked away from the screen. The projectile crossed the stars in seconds. The lead Zirathi ship opened its maw to intercept. But the warhead was too fast, too angry. It struck dead center, and for the first time in recorded history, a Zirathi capital ship howled. The impact tore through its armor, through its core, and out the back like a burning fist of vengeance. The entire ship cracked open, molten matter and disintegrating metal spilling out like guts. For a second, it flared like a dying sun. Then it exploded. The shockwave shattered one of the smaller escort ships instantly. The 3rd Zirathi vessel veered hard, retreating, listing, afraid of one human ship. Ryland slammed his fist on the console. Target the 2nd. All remaining torpedoes. Torpedoes away! Vale called out. The last missiles streaked forward, chasing the broken escorts. One hit, then another. The 2nd ship went dark, systems fried, drifting into the void like a corpse. And then silence. The last Zirathi ship, the one that had run, vanished into slipspace. Gone. Rylan exhaled, body sagging slightly as the tension finally bled out of him. Around him, the bridge was dead quiet. No one knew what to say. They'd won, somehow. They'd stared down extinction and killed it with a single shot. And then the ship groaned again. Deep. Painful. Reactors destabilizing, Vale said, not panicked, just tired. That last shot fried the baffles. How long? Maybe 5 minutes. Rylan nodded slowly, then turned to the crew. Get to the escape pods. That's an order. What about you? Vale asked. He looked at her with a strange smile. Wry, bittersweet. Somebody's got to make sure the story makes it home. She hesitated. You'll die. Maybe, he said. But so will they. And with that, she didn't argue. She gave him a crisp nod and sprinted to the pods. The crew followed. Rylan walked alone back to the core chamber. Sparks danced in the air. The heat was unbearable. He climbed into the manual override chair, connected the cables, and slumped down. He activated the comms. A direct feed to Earth. This is Captain Rylan Cade of the Revenant. His voice was calm. Quiet. We engaged Zirathi forces at coordinates 30 by 6. First contact resulted in heavy loss. Second contact resulted in victory, at high cost. He paused. They're not gods. They bleed. They fear us now, and I want them to remember this moment. Outside, the core boiled. This ship wasn't made to last, but it was made to speak one truth loud enough to echo across the stars. He looked up through the viewport, where the stars blinked softly, watching. Humanity is not prey. He hit the trigger. The Revenant's core went critical. The ship burst like a dying star, taking the debris field and every trace of the Zirathi with it. A final act of defiance, beautiful in its violence, and across the galaxy the story spread. They called it suicide. They called it madness. But the Zirathi called it something else. Fear, because the silence of space was gone. And in its place was the thunder of Earth's fury.